Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rachel Stern, and I'm the director and CEO of the Fritz Ascher Society for Persecuted, Ostracized, and Banned Art based in New York. We research, discuss, publish, and exhibit artists whose life and work were affected by the German Nazi regime between 1933 and 1945. Today, I'm excited to welcome you to Jeanne Mammen, a life dedicated to art. This is an event of our monthly virtual lecture series, Flight or Fight, Stories of Artists Under Repression. It is my pleasure to introduce our distinguished speaker, Dr. Martina Weinland. Dr. Weinland is the Commissioner of Cultural Heritage at the Museum of the City of Berlin in Germany. She's a Berlin art historian who's responsible for 9 dependent artist foundations at the museum, including Fritz Ascher and Jeanne Mammen. She has worked at the Stadtmuseum Berlin since 1992. Throughout her career, she has published numerous books on the urban history of Berlin, including a monograph on the Märkisches Museum and the water bridges in Berlin. She also curated several exhibitions, including the 2016 exhibition, Berlin, City of Women. Martina Weinland very readily agreed to show me the museum's rich holdings of Jeanne Mammen's work when I approached her in 2017, my curiosity sparked by a retrospective at Berlinische Galerie. I'm thrilled that she has agreed to talk to us today. Welcome, Martina Weinland. Hello. This presentation, let me just see. I see somebody doesn't get the audio. This presentation was pre-recorded. Afterwards, we'll have time to ask questions, so please submit them in the chat function. And I'll share my screen now. Just bear with me.
Hello, this is Martina Weinland. I'm very pleased to be able to speak to you today. I would like to introduce you to the Berlin artist Jeanne Mammen and her work. My talk lasts about 30 minutes. You will then have the opportunity to ask questions. I'm looking forward to our conversation and discussions with you. Jeanne Mammen was born on 21st November 1890 in Berlin as youngest of 4 children and died there at 22nd April 1976. In between this lifetime of 86 years, she spent her childhood and adolescence in Paris, started her study of art there at the Académie Julian in 1907, together with her 2 years older sister, Marie-Louise, better known as Mimi. After 1 year, they moved to Brussels and enrolled at the Académie Royale. Brussels was at that time the hotspot for symbolistic art, in which Jeanne was very interested. In 1909, she was honored for her artwork with a medal pour composition. Her well-known works in a symbolist manner include The Temptation of St. Anthony. In 1999, Mimi and Jeanne left Brussels and returned to Paris and the Académie Julian. From 1910, both attended the Scuola Libera of the Villa Medici in Rome. They finally returned to Paris in 1912, where they rented a small studio. The studio was sparsely furnished, just a couch and an oven, but the walls were full of drawings and pictures. Mostly Mimi is a motive because she was and remained the most important person for Jeanne. Only this painting and a few watercolors have survived from the pictures made at that time, and they were easy to transport in a folder when the family had to leave France in 1914, but more on that later. I took a lot of walks through Paris and was drawing sketches of Paris, of the exciting life there. It was anything but normal in those days for a young woman to walk through the city unaccompanied if she did not want to be mistaken for a prostitute. But Jeanne Mammen did so. It is amazing and a characteristic of Jeanne Mammen's artwork that she always showed a strong interest in people, rarely telling stories. The iconic topography of the city, like the Eiffel Tower or Notre Dame, were of little importance in her work, as same as in her later Berlin works. So here you can see two sketches with normal people, two coal howlers in the Aborigines, a coal mining area in Belgium, and a drunk couple in a bar in Paris. All drawings were made between 1912 and 1914. She returned to her birthplace after the outbreak of World War I in 1915. The family was forced to leave Paris due to the status as animal aliens in 1914, and they wandered around Holland in search of a new home before deciding to go back to Berlin. The economic situation during her first years back in Berlin was really bad. The family lived very close together in one flat, and Jeanne and her sister Mimi tried to find jobs as illustrator for magazines. During the early 20s, when those became increasingly successful, they were able to rent their own studio at the Kurfürstendamm 29. On April 1st, 1920, they were able to sign the lease. Although the two sisters were 30 and 32 years old, respectively, their father had to provide a guarantee. This address was during the 20s in the heart of West Berlin's entertainment area. During the 20s and 30s, the Mammen sisters had a lot of work. Mimi was famous for her fashion drawings, which were published in well-known magazines. Jeanne was successful with her illustrations in a lot of magazines like this, or in Der Junggeselle, Ulk, and Simplicissimus. Mimi, on the other hand, has many jobs for fashion newspapers. Both of them are really, really good at business. Jeanne also got in contact with some famous cabaret performers like Valeska Gerd. You see her here at the right hand. Gerd was at the height of her career, 1929, and had her own cabaret named Polkop. During the NS era, she immigrated to France, London, and at least 1939 to America. In New York City, she opened 1941 a cabaret called Beggar's Bar. 1947, she returned to Europe, and 1949, she arrived again in Berlin and reopened the cabaret Hexenküche. She surely met Jeanne, who had survived the war in secret and in the middle of her studio. But let's go back to 1927. Here are a few examples of the works with which Jeanne Mammen became popular. The writer Kurt Tucholsky, who got to know Jeanne Mammen personally in 1927, is fascinated by her. Until then, he only knew her through her illustrations in the various newspapers. He writes that she really exists and that she is not a pseudonym amazes him. Here are some more examples. Please see how easy, almost pleasing these drawings are. After all, it is commission work. In 1930, Jeanne Mammen is now 40 years old. Her first solo exhibition takes place in the Wolfgang Gurlitt Gallery. The small catalogue lists some pencil sketches that Jeanne Mammen made during her life drawing courses. What she shows in the exhibitions are her free works, snapshots of her critical observations. Please see here some more examples. Few texts of erotic literature have fascinated and inspired artists as much as Les Chansons de Bilitis, published by Pierre Lawes in 1894. This French poet started a sensation with this illustrated book. The Songs of the Bilitis are a collection of erotic and essential lesbian poems. Lawes claimed in 1894 to have found these 143 poems on the walls of a tomb in Cyprus. They are said to have been written by the courtesan Bilitis, who lived in ancient Greece, and are about her first sexual experience. A lot of artists, among them the composer Claude Debussy, but also painters like Willy Poggengy, illustrated the Bilitis songs. Therefore, it seemed only natural that the Berlin art dealer Wolfgang Gurlitt, and initiator of the first solo exhibition for Jeanne Mammen in 1930, asked her to transfer the Bilitis into a series of lithographs. Between 1930 and 1932, Mammen created 9 lithographs for Gurlitt's planned deluxe edition. She remembered, "It took a long time until we finished the whole edition. Meanwhile, the Hitler era began and the Second World War started. Gurlitt moved to Munich and later to exile." Mammen kept the prints, but during a night of intense bombing, parts of the studio were damaged and she could only a few proof prints saved. Here you see 2 more examples from the Bilitis, 2 girls and the choice. On February 27 in 1933, Jeanne registers as unemployed and ended in April 1938. She took over various jobs, including as a window dresser for a fashion house on Tauentzien, a street nearby, as a puppet producer for the Reich Institute for Puppetry, and as co-operator of the book cart To the Smiling Berolina at Wielandstraße, corner of Kurfürstendamm. She participated in an exhibition in the Association of Women Artists in Berlin. While her clients are driven out and forced into exile, Jeanne Mammen tries to survive. In doing so, she acts very carefully, avoiding any fuss. She hides her true views from people, but she finds the necessary outlet in her art. However, her motives seem strangely frozen. It is important to understand what kind of situation a successful artist finds herself in. Her sister Mimi is still with her in the studio. They try to get through the Nazi area together. But Mimi is increasingly harassed because she lives in a lesbian relationship with Henriette Goldenberg. Together they leave Berlin and move to Tehran. The friends Max Delbrück, Hans and Clara Gavron, as well as Kurt and Grete Wohl, are also forced to emigrate. It gets very quiet in the studio, very lonely around Jeanne Mammen. Even when the friends are now out of the country, they worry about Jeanne and try to help her by offering pictures of her for sale. They send her the proceeds by postal order. That works surprisingly well and ensures Jeanne's survival, even if only on a small scale. Working figuratively with the hands became very important for Jeanne Mammen between 1933 and 1945. Together with her artist friend Hans Ullmann, she discovered shape as a space-defining element. Ullmann later became famous with his large-scale sculptures in the urban area of Berlin. She would turn away from sculptures again. Through her letters to friends in exile, we know how Jeanne Mammen fared in the last 2 years of the war. The remains of Jeanne are sitting in the remains of Berlin and have endured much, much endlessly, much ghastliness and horror. All of my little pictures are still there and are proliferating. I was amazingly industrious during the whole war, despite the fact that everything was done covertly, and that I, for a long time, did not dare to let anyone even cast a glance into my studio. At the end of the war, 1945, Jeanne is now 55 years old, but has an irrepressible zest for life. For her, the end of the war means the new beginning of her life and her artwork. She wrote to her friend Max Delbrück, who lived in Pasadena, California. Our good old Berlin is a sea of devastation and ruins. You would not be able to find your way here. We have joined forces here in a group of artists and are doing a lot of work and even exhibiting a lot. At first, there was a hard struggle with the criticism, and the Nazi dumbification still had its after effects. In 1949 and 50, a small circle of painters and authors and a gastronom tried to find a way out of the crisis. They found Neodada's cabaret in the basement pub Die Badewanne. Jeanne participated with enthusiasm and designed scenes, translated French texts, paints backdrops, and sew costumes. In a letter to Max Delbrück, she described her work. The Berlin swing is continuing to function prettily up and down in artist life. At the moment, it is back up once again. We have opened a little theater, several painters and authors together, and present the most comical things that we can think ourselves. That is a lot of fun and provides a lot of stimulation. The economic situation of the artists was miserable in those years and was only mitigated by care packages with food, coffee, cigarettes, clothing, and painting utensils, which her American friends, above all Max Delbrück, but also Hans Gavron and Kurt Vohl, sent. Illustration jobs for the political satirical magazine Uhlenspiegel and for the cultural magazine Athena were Jeanne Mammen's only source of income in these years. She uses wires and scraps of cable that the Russian occupying troops left in the courtyard and the packing twine of Max Delbrück's care packages, and she forms out of it figures and profiles of the trumpets. Via correspondence, Mammen kept in close contact with Max Delbrück, who was doing research in Pasadena at the California Institute of Technology. In 1949, a shipment of pictures was sent to the USA, which was distributed among the Vohl, Gavron, and Delbrück families. A second box with paintings was lost in the tragedy of the shipwreck of the Flying Enterprise in 1952. Beyond her engagement in the cabaret Badewanne, Mammen participated in several exhibitions in the gallery Rosen. Mammen now develops pictures formulations and reduces the elements to linear creations appear on monochrome painting backgrounds. They are sketch-like, only implied in their representation, bracked in parallel lineature, whose contours are disintegrating or which are melting into their surroundings. The lines of the emblematic ornamental subjects are straight or slightly curved. They move in their own rhythm as if in a trance or stand stiff and tense in their surrounding space. With the beginning of the 50s, Mammen develops pictures formulations that become further removed from representational art. Figures reduced to line creations appear in Spanish Night, 1950. Mammen's artistic striving places the transparency of the graphic elements and a dramatic relationship to the tensity of the pictorial space. From the middle of the 50s on, color predominated more and more, gradually displaced the graphic elements. Figurative relationships remain detectable as color traces, but no longer allow, at first glance, any associations with objects. The colors Mammen applies become more intense and brilliant, and often she only wipes or dabs the paint, sometimes creating a pointillist impression. This picture right is titled Garden Party from 1951. The left one is titled Mother and Child, 1955. I always let the backgrounds dry over and over, then I take them in my hand again. Usually I paint with my fingers, which have more feeling than stupid paintbrushes, and besides, they are easier to wash. I also smear the paint directly from the tip, but the damp oil always dries out. That is what bothers me most, describes Mammen her work progress at the beginning of the 60s. Mammen develops forms of pictorial expression which distance themselves again from the high degree of abstraction of the works of the late 50s. New formal design elements appear in her pictures. She uses Cybers mystic signs, which are understood by some interpreters to be psychograms. Mammen's late works can be divided into two groups. Her preference for the fantastic trivial art-like in candy wrappers from USA, 1960 on the left hand, and a rather contemplative pictorial word like Venus or Evening Star, 1965 on the right hand. New formal design elements are added, so she begins to integrate tinfoil papers into her works. The shiny, glittering praline and chocolate wrappers are generously dispersed as irregular scraps or small rectangles and gives the composition a curiously irrational character. Devised of the banal everyday function, they are put to serve a willful and bizarre aesthetic. As far as the richness of form and color are concerned, but also with regard to the atmosphere and the narrative element, these works allowed to the artist's early symbolist wash. In the 60s, Mammen started traveling. One highlight was a trip to Morocco with Max Delbrück in May 1969. However, this undertaking almost cost her life, for she became gravely ill. She falls ill with pneumonia on their trip to the desert in a jeep and is transported to the hospital in Rabat. Max Delbrück has to travel on to America, but takes care of all problems with regard to the German consulate and the clinic. However, at the beginning of June, Mammen is back to Berlin. This year, 1969, ends with a great ceremony for Max Delbrück, because he awarded the Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine jointly with Hershey and Luria. In honor of her 80th birthday in 1970, she got 2 great exhibitions in Berlin and in Hamburg. These were a great sales success, and at 80 years of age, the artist was suddenly famous. Mammen writes to Delbrück in May 1970. In Berlin, Jeanette has gone up in price. Someone paid 1,800 German marks for a watercolor drawing. So let's hope for the best. The friend is happy, and Mammen is proud of it because Delbrück is one of her earliest and most loyal collectors. In the last years of her life, Jeanne Mammen only painted a few pictures. Her physical strength dwindled more and more. 2 eye operations have caused her lots of problems, and she groans 1975 about the offer of an exhibition in Stuttgart. That all comes much too late. She is now 85 years old. Now I have an unhealthy preference for white. When I feel better again, I will paint all pictures in white. In 100,000 years, they will all have turned golden. One last long journey took her to Avignon in order to visit the great Picasso exhibition, which had been organized after Picasso's death in 1973. He was a painter Jeanne Mammen venerated for many, many years. The dominant white background of the picture caused her friends to give it the title Promise of Winter. It is a large picture with dimensions of 100 to 121 centimeter, and it is heavy. Jeanne Mammen applied the colors to it, layer upon layer, white, blue, red, then white again, several centimeters thick. Horizontal strips, partly painted over in white, divides the composition into 3 vertical and 3 horizontal segments in which different signs arranged under each other can be detected. In the upper part of the middle vertical picture segments, an orange-red figure dominates, which is comprised of 2 connection triangles. Perhaps it is a tiara, a fool's cap, or the beak of a bird opened upward. Below it, somewhat to the left, is a small white skull that seems to over water surface. In the left vertical segment, a red diagonal line drawn to the left breaks off and bends to the right. Over that there is a small original yellow triangle and an orange-red mask-like face defined with black, looking out of the depths of the picture space. In the lower half of the picture to the left, blue-gray and red traces of color and a small formation of 2 rectangles make a compositional counterbalance. In the right half of the picture, there's a large red skewed cross, and over that a white mask, caught behind by diagonal strips and delimited to the above part. Although the individual picture elements seem to be placed at random, they are still put into a precisely composed structure of weights and counterweights. It is hardly possible to decode the signs in this composition. Whether here death motifs, mystic spirits, or dream sequence are depicted, whether the dominating white, the seemingly moderate basic substance of the pictures symbolize the cancellation of all colors and with that the negation of the visual world, asking these questions or finding others to ask remains the task of future beholders. In the lower half of the picture to the right, Jeanne Mammen placed a small red rhombus made of glazed paper, like a period at the end of a sentence. Jeanne Mammen died on April 22nd, 1976 in Berlin. From 1920 to 1976, the studio at Kurfürstendamm 29 was a meeting point for the circle of friends that Jeanne Mammen gathered around her. After her death, they decided to keep the studio. Everything should remain as it was in Jeanne's lifetime. To secure the project, the Jeanne Mammen Foundation was established at the Stadtmuseum Berlin in 2003. Since 2018, the studio has opened once a month and invites you to take a journey into the past. Paintings from the years 1933 to 1975, her last work, can be seen. Jeanne Mammen died 22nd April 1976 in Berlin. She said very little about herself, only so much. You must always write that my pictures were created between 1890 and 1975. That was the only important thing for her. Thank you for your attention. Do you have questions? I will do my best to answer them.
Oh, thank you so much, Martina Weinland. And of course, there are already a few questions, and I have questions as well. The first question, going back to the very beginning of your talk, is about the kind of women that Jeanne Mammen portrayed. She seems to be the prototype of the liberated new woman. And is that the woman she highlights in her artwork, or what do you think she focuses on? Was ist die, yeah.
Thank you very much for the invitation at first, Rachel. I think it is, you have think about this special time. The old tradition is gone with the end of the First World War, and a new beginning also for women started, but they are not really emancipated, and therefore they try to find good jobs and to have a standing on their own feet, but it is very probably, and I think Jeanne is a critical observer when she saw the women with older men crossing the Kurfürstendamm and spend their time or wasted to them because they are beautiful, they are young, and the men have the money and they are looking for a short affair or so. And I think that is not the picture which Jeanne Mammen prefer for the new coming generation of women.
Of course, of course. But she became, if I understand right, she became pretty well known with her illustrations of the Song of Bilitis. Or is that only in hindsight such a well-known series of hers?
No, this Bilitis was an order by Gurlitt, but it never appears. It was because he has to left Germany, and therefore he didn't print this deluxe edition. And a lot of these 9 drawings, the originals, were damaged in this bomb night at 42. So she only could save some of the proof prints. It is really a mess that this Bilitis serial didn't take place. Yeah, but before this, I think her sketches were very famous about actress Valeska Gerd, and also she was very famous for her critical views of women when they are public at the horse races or at the Kurfürstendamm going shopping. But more increase or save her income was really with the illustrations of these magazines, like Ulk, like Simplicissimus, and also for art, fashion, for fashion magazines. Yeah, this was the one of the domain for her and also for Mimi. And then the Kurfürstendamm is a very central big street in Berlin, and at this street they were founded the Kino, wie heißt es denn? Movement? Cinema, yeah, the cinema and theater, and they also needed artists who make them the poster, and therefore they had a lot of order for Pola Negri. She was very famous to make the poster for the new coming movies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. So is that the kind of art that also got her into problems with the Nazis? David asked was whether Mammen's work was part of the infamous Degenerate Art exhibition in Munich, and whether she received a Malverbot.
No, she didn't receive Malverbot, and she was not part of the exhibition in Munich. No, it was not this kind. It was her own decision not to be accompanied with Nazi official artwork. She doesn't want it. And therefore, she looked to find other income possibilities. And on the other hand, a lot of her former orders were Jewish people, and they had to leave. Germany, and therefore there were no other people who would give her some order for prints or for sketches or so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, she definitely was friends and had a lot of customers who were outspokenly against Hitler, and Kurt Tucholsky is the one connection that I find really interesting, because he has this biting humor and observation skills in terms of what was happening in society at that time. And of course, everybody, all of these people were against Hitler. So it's really amazing that that didn't get her into problems. I mean, she must have stepped back early enough to not get into on the wrong lists.
Yeah, and I think she is a very, although she is a very small person, she is in character very, very strong and very clear with her opinions. And she disliked this Nazi terror. And believe me, she lived at the Kurfürstendamm. And long before, at January 1933, Hitler gets power, they started to damage the restaurants and the small pubs. And so it started much earlier in the 30s, and she lived in between it. And she heard the broken glasses of the Schaufenster and so on. Yeah, and therefore she lived in between this, and she noticed the terror long before it was political decision.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Ted is asking, why is there no implication of the Hitler period in her? But I remember seeing these warriors, the dying warriors that she created. So there are some works that are critical of Hitler, right? And in an indirect way, aren't there?
Now, as a critical is as an example, as I show the man with a cap, because this is from style and her technical, it is very close to Picasso, very close to Braque, and these are the people who are disliked by the Nazis, and therefore, so that she now decided to paint in the manner of these artists. She gives her personal testimony that she belongs to that group and not to the Nazis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. And one question here by Susan is asking, what happened to her sister Mimi during and after the war? Did she continue to make art?
No, that's really till today not researched in a completely way. Known is that she went to Tehran, and in 1942 she had to leave Persia, because she was German. Girlfriend was Persian, and therefore she Henriette could stay. And Mimi go back to Bavaria, and she was working as a secretary. In an office. Yeah, she doesn't make any art work. She stopped when she left on 37. She stopped to do artwork, and then she came back 42, and she goes back again. I think 47, and then she died there in Tehran on 56 because she got an accident with a car and in a traffic, and then she died.
Okay. I'm interested in this, dealing with her customers. Like I'm fascinated that she survived all these war years by sending artworks to, I guess, to the US, right, where she still had her loyal customers who were then in return sending back money or sending back other goods. Could you elaborate a little bit on that? Like, how did she manage to get anything out of the country?
Yeah, I'm really astonished, the same as you are, because the shipping was very exciting. At first, she has to find someone who built her, or for the pictures, a case. Or from wood or so, and then she had to bring the case with the pictures in it to Hamburg, also to get it on a ship to leave it. And it was really a mess for her when she sent some of her pictures with a ship called Enterprise, because it was sunk, it sunk, and the pictures are damaged with this. And so it was really, yeah, I think she was not only a strong woman, she was also a hero in organization, how to get the things out of here. And in some cases, I think friends of friends who traveled, took the pictures apart to maybe France or England, and from then they traveled with them. It was a long story. And on the other hand, we have realized that Max Delbrück, when he visited Germany, always picked up some pictures with him to America. And then he started there to make exhibitions and also the sale of the pictures. Yeah, it was mostly done by Max Delbrück in America.
That's quite amazing, quite a setup. And now Joseph is asking, what was she trying to express in her 1943 painting Dying Warrior? And I realized that she had a very brief time really when she did sculptures, and many of these sculptures deal with that warrior, right? Also, so what?
Yeah, I'm also impressed by her sculpture works because they are so strong and so close in the theme and in the method to make it. I think this both pictures we have about the dying warriors has a lot to do with her own family story, because both nephews, the son of her brother Oscar and the son of her elder sister, were soldiers in the war and they died. So this, and Mammen has a very close relationship to these both nephews, and therefore I think it was her personal experience and her sorrow which is expressed in these paintings. The other hand, with this sculpture, I think it is these. She, before this, she collected always stones, special woods and forms which are expressive, formed by nature, but express special emotions like anger, like love, like sorrow, and so. And I think she tried to give her inner feeling in this expression sculptures. So the barrier, these are also forms which seems very archaic, and so she gives the dominated of this of the terror which is in the during this Nazi time expressed in these sculptures. Maybe I could explain it in German better. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
No, it makes a lot of sense. And I remember reading that she said in 1946 that the whole Berlin is a whole pile of rubble and is all destroyed. And in some way, I feel that the sculptures are leading over to her post-war work really, where she doesn't deal with people anymore. I mean, it reminds me in a way of Fritz Ascher's work, who, before the Nazi years, was very interested in other people, and then completely after 45 turns away from people. And do you think that was like a conscious decision from her to turn away from people, or did she see that as such, or what is your take on that?
I just miss a question. Sorry.
Do you think Jeanne Mammen consciously moved away from people after 45 in her artwork?
Yeah, it is not so clearly as the time before, but also in the garden party or in this mother and child, what I show, you see how longer you are looking at these pictures, more you can see the figures in the picture. At the first glance, it looks like crickle crackle, and then you see also the hidden persons in it. And yeah, maybe that is her experience about this wartime, that you are not, it's not a good advice to give too much inner views to other people. Also the people when you are not knowing them very good. Huh? Yeah. It is a trustless time. You cannot trust. And also because you cannot trust, you cannot show people directly. So you have to hide them. I think that's her experience. Huh?
It's interesting because David says that her work after the war seems to be divorced from life. Knowing post-war Germany's cultural wasteland, it looks to me that her work very much needed the vibrancy of a diverse society like the one she experienced in the 20s. Could you elaborate on the importance of cultural life to her?
Yeah, but it is right. What he said, but on the other hand, never before this time on 1945 and on till 1952, never before in her life she joined a group. But after this Nazi terrorism and the time very, very close, it looks a little bit similar to what we now had an experience in Corona time. We are also very, very close, and she was more or less alone. Yeah, without any partner to get in contact or communicate it and to share her experience and her watches what she is looking in her surrounding. So at the end of this war, now with 55 years old, it is the first time that she goes out and is looking for groups of artists and other one and literature and so on, and to get in communicated. That's really is astonished. And also we have a very, very wide correspondence, which she makes with Max Delbrück and Hans Thiemann, later in Hamburg, and Kurt and Grete Wohl, and so on. And what's the special thing in this correspondence is she started, the correspondences started up 45 and till her end in 1976. And the special thing is that we have also her letters to the people and the answers. That means we can really go in this bilingual discussion between the both. Mostly, you have only the letters which you get, not the letter you send, and therefore it is really fascinated to go in this life and to see what she is thinking, how she spent her days, to whom she is connected, and so on. And I think this is before 45, she is more close for herself and with her sister. And after this, she is more open, although her artwork is more closer and hide the figures.
Right. So Susan asked, what were Jeanne's politics post-World War II? You know, it's amazing that you have that correspondence. Does she talk about politics, about the situation in post-45 in Germany?
Yeah, at first she's writing to Max Delbrück that he will not find the streets and the views because everything is damaged. Later, I was really fascinated about one letter in 1962, 1 year after the wall was building and the city was really separated. She writes, "Oh, how lovely when you will come next to Berlin. You have to bring a lot of your own spirit, own spirit, because here's nothing." Und also auf Deutsch heißt das, du musst deinen Schwung selber mitbringen, weil hier ist gerade keiner, ja. Und I hope I have translated correctly. And later, that is after he becomes 1969 the Nobel Prize, he's very interested of other Germans who receive it, and they write a long time in 72 about a Willy. Always writing about Willy, and I thought, who Willy? Which Willy? And at the end, normal. It was Willy Brandt because he was major till this time and then changed to Bonn. And he because of the Kniefall in Warsaw, he received the Nobel Prize for Peace. Right. And therefore they discuss a lot of letters, about 3 or 4 letters, always changing here. And also, they have a lot of cultural hints, like new books and music. A lot of hints for new music, Barlog, and so on. And yeah, it's exciting because it's like a time slot. Zack, and you are in another time, yeah. And that's exactly. Really, I'm amazing.
So yeah, definitely. So George is asking, there are 2 artists who come to mind looking at this work, and I think he means the late work: Marie Laurencin in the Paris phase, and later the paintings of Paul Klee. Do you think those were influences for her?
The mostly influencer was really Pablo Picasso, and similar to him, he changed very often his style. The blue period, the pink period, and in it all. And I think that she herself has a very similar image. She tried. She was fascinated about the artwork of other colleagues in her time. And I often explain it to me that she wanted to feel it when she was painting like this or that in this style. She felt what was behind it. And I think this was her experience. This was important for her, to have the experience. What is when I paint like Picasso or Miro, or I think some of her pictures are really close to Braque and to the French artist.
Yeah, right. So I see our time is over. I have one more question for you. I mean, I'm only starting to understand the gigantic job you have in with the Jeanne Mammen Foundation, and of course these letters I think are super interesting to be, you know, published. And I know you're still maintaining the her studio at Kudam, Kurfürstendamm 29. Do you want to just say a few concluding words about that, and then we'll, you know, wrap up this event?
Yeah, first of all, I will say you're all very, very heartily invited to come to Berlin and to visit this studio. That's possible. You can get in contact with me, and then we have a personal meeting there. It is not so wide, it has only 50 square meters. And therefore, we can only go to with maximal 10 persons, because everything is original in this studio. Only the paintings, pictures are now reproductions, because we were not able, or we are not able, to have the safeness and the climate we need in this studio for the originals, and therefore they are in our storage. But this atmosphere, I think it is really very, very special to be at home by Jeanne Mammen and to see her furniture, which she paints on her own, and to see how she lived in it, and a long life from 1920 to 1976. It's about 50 years. And so, yeah, you are really invited. Come and look, and have the feeling of the atmosphere. Very original place.
Thank you so much. I think we have the first takers here for that invitation. So this is exciting. So thank you so much, Martina Weinland, for your work on behalf of Jeanne Mammen, and for sharing with us your insights into the artist's life and work, especially the less known facts of her life, including her survival of Nazi persecution in Berlin, as well as the lesser known works of her so rich artistic legacy. Thank you so much. Everyone, stay healthy and be well, and stay in touch. Goodbye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.